I wanted people to just not feel alone, I think. And that was like the extension of the podcast was a way to complement that as well. And I think like you can feel when someone, a creator, like cares or doesn't about their community. And I just like, I die for my mission. Like I just feel so strongly about it.
Welcome, bienvenue, bonjour to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. For women who desire to awaken their heartfelt desires, trust themselves fully, and connect with their soul's purpose through beauty. On y va. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. This is Marino. Bonjour. I am so excited for this introduction. So this was a woman that I didn't actually know prior to the podcast. She was introduced and suggested to me to be on the pod. And I always really listen to these inner nudges when someone's brought into my world. And it's not always the right fit, right? So really following that intuition. I was so touched by this woman and going to her podcast and seeing what she's doing online. She has such an extraordinary energy. There's a power in there. There's a resilience in there. And then there's also such a beautiful level of vulnerability and authenticity, all wrapped in just courage. She's so freaking cool. So I want to introduce to you Han from How Han Sees It. Her podcast is How I See It. She is all about unapologetic fashion, beauty, and authentic truth. This was such a powerful, fun conversation. Her level of vulnerability in talking about how difficult at times this journey of growth and evolution and this just the potency of self-awareness, the way that she talks about this, I find is really, really gorgeous. And she also shares, which I know so many of us can relate to, her own, history and even current conversations around her body and her message in the world and what she really wants and intends and just, wants to inspire women to see it the way they see it, to embody fashion and beauty and their own mission in the world in a way that really turns them on. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Han to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. I know you're going to love her. And as I share inside of the podcast, go check her out on Instagram. You're going to fall in love with her reels, her outfits, her attitude. It's just so yummy and so fresh. So here we go. On y va. Hello, bonjour, and welcome to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. This is Marino, and I am really touched by the woman that we're going to be speaking with today. I'm going to officially tell you her name is Hannah, but I was just given permission to call her Han. Gave myself that permission because she said her friends call her Han, so we're doing that. I think it's chic. I think it's edgy. I actually love it. You've heard her professional bio already, but I want to, just in a couple of minutes that I've had to connect with this woman, to do some research, to feel her energy. We actually had a beautiful welcome preview call together a few weeks ago. I am stunned that this woman just turned 27 years old. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation about that. She is a fashionista. She's a beauty lover. She's a soul lover. And I am so grateful to welcome to the podcast Han from San Diego at the moment. Welcome to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for those kind words. It's really touching. It means a lot to me.
Well, I have another little thing that I want to share with you.
Ooh,
Your eyebrows are freaking amazing.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Have a moment for the eyebrows.
Thank you so much. It's so funny. I was talking on my platforms the other day about how I used to get bullied in high school for my eyebrows. Everything that you used to get bullied for as a kid is ultimately what ends up being something that everyone compliments you for. So thank you.
It is so true. I used to go home crying because all the girls told me I had a lion's mane. And they'd make fun of my hair. And now I'm like,
oh my gosh, you have gorgeous
watch
hair.
Out. So we got to give a little attention to the eyebrows. They're absolutely stunning.
Thank you.
All right. So I just want to go straight in. I know you and I, before we officially pressed record, I asked you if there was anything that was super juicy and up for you right now. And you were sharing just this free fall really into the growth and evolution that we move through And then that beautiful point in time where it's like, you know what? Okay, now you have the awareness. Now you've admitted to yourself that this is what's up. Are you going to take the aligned action? So there's so much that we can talk about. And I want to touch on beauty and fashion. And I love how you say somewhere in your bio or podcast that you're probably in a blazer. And ladies, she is
I'm
in
in
a beautiful
one.
blazer. So we're going to go there. But I really just want to ride on that energy from the very beginning. If you would just gift yourself permission to just go with what you were sharing earlier, and we can just take it from there.
Oh, yes. I am like all in. So
Yeah.
essentially what we were talking about is, so for the last like since I would say 2019, 2020, I really like dove into my own personal healing. Like I had struggled with depression and anxiety my entire life. I was crippled by it, and I had really sold myself this idea that like it was something I had to live with forever. And I just hit this point where I was like, you know what? Like, I can't get much worse than this. Like, I should just try going to therapy. I should try going to get help. I should try going to like work through my stuff. And it was life changing. And I think like in that journey, obviously there's highs and lows of the healing journey, especially if you're in it, like, you know what I'm talking about. And I think like it hits a point, and it's now 2024. I'm in like an amazing place with my mental health. I like don't claim depression or anxiety at all anymore. I feel in such a good place. But you know, you hit this like point in your journey where you're walking the walk and you've healed and you've worked through your past trauma and you're rewriting the narrative in your head, and it's all great, takes so much work. But you kind of face this crossroads where you're like, okay, these decisions and these situations are popping up again, and I have a choice if I want to, you know, slide back into old Hannah and make the comfortable choice that's ultimately going to make me very uncomfortable, or I can make the uncomfortable hard choice now, and it's going to be for my betterment and my alignment and my true authentic self. Because for me, healing is really leaning into your true authentic self. So that's kind of where I've been faced with a lot of new tests, and I have a choice to, you know, make the right choice. And it's hard making the uncomfortable choices.
It is really hard. And I love that you're bringing this forward because, you know, this idea that we first moved into of I'm going to evolve, I'm going to grow, I'm going to go there, I'm going to try, I'm going to at least say, what if? And we start unraveling the emotional piece inside of us. And a little part of us is like, okay, I'm done, right? I did it. I did the emotional work. And then life's like, yeah, now you get to live into it. Now you
Yep.
get to actually embody what you asked for. And I so agree with you. There's that gorgeous bridge where we're like, oh, right? Like can
Oh,
I leap into the divine unknowing,
it's
knowing
so
I'm
hard.
being called, but having no idea what it's going to look like? Or so is there like something, and you know, you don't ever have to, right? But I know we're here together for this. Inside of the context of your own beautiful life, is there a decision, something up for you inside where you're like, am I gonna go there?
Yeah, I think it like it's in I so I break down, especially in my podcast, I talk a lot about like the pillars, right? The pillars of our life. So we have like the work pillar, the emotional pillar, the like romantic pillar. Like we have all these
Yeah.
different pillars. And I think I've been like faced with the same I'll say problem, or the same like soft spot for me in all of the pillars, like in different ways. And I think that's like kind of the way like God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, kind of shows you like what you have to work on. So I think like last year 2023 for me was like vulnerability. I am so good at being vulnerable online and facilitating conversations and being really open about like my own personal healing, but I have a really hard time being vulnerable in real life when there's something at stake with people that can hurt me. So I think like last year was me just full sending, like I'm not going to just be vulnerable on my platforms and with my own personal healing, but with like the people in my life, I'm going to let people in.
Yeah.
I think like in the entrepreneurial pillar, like I was in a place where I had to evolve, and like I couldn't just like stay stagnant. and I could feel it like in the community. You know, you can feel people's energy, right? Especially you get it. Like when you have something that has like a virtual community, you can feel when like there needs to be a shift. And I think I was nervous and anxious about change. And it
Yeah.
like brought me back to a place of like being anxious. And then that alone made me feel anxious that I was feeling anxious. And I just like started spiraling. And I think there was this moment where I've had to like ground myself going into this year and be like, you have all the tools. Like,
Mm.
you walk this walk and you're very passionate about it. Like, you need to keep talking the talk. Like, you need to push. And you keep saying, like, it's beautiful, and it is. But I think it's only beautiful in hindsight. It is like incredibly terrifying to like face like something that deeply feels uncomfortable in your core. But I think it's where that mind body muscle comes in. And I think a lot of healing and choosing the right thing like for ourselves is doing the thing that you know your mind is telling you is like run away, but your body's like no, you have to do this.
Yeah, your heart's like this way, this way, this
Exactly.
way. I love that you bring up even the visibility and energy between you and your community, that there is a sense where you're like, there's something here. Because, first of all, I love your reels. I want everybody to go
Thank
follow
you.
you on Instagram.
Thank
They're
you.
edgy, they're cute, they're sensual, they're filled with fashion and depth. Love them.
Thank
Love
you.
them, love them. Like, we're going to put your, Instagram and all that stuff in the show notes. So I want everyone to go see them. So when you think about that energy between you and your community, when you're creating these kind of reels, when you're allowing yourself to be authentic, what is your intention around all of that when you're in that form of creation and conversation with your community?
Oh my gosh. Such a big question. And it means it is like the closest to my heart as well. I think like to be an entrepreneur and then on top of that, be in this space, you really have to like there has to be something more than just like I want to show my outfits. Obviously want to show my outfits. I love fashion so much, but to me like building a community online, like building How Hand Sees It was way more about like the way that I wanted to make people feel. I think
Mm.
that I grew up like super not confident, a lot of like body issues, like just very I've always been confident in who I am and like what I stand for, but I think looks was really hard for me, like
Mm.
appearance, the body, everything. And so I felt that when I scrolled online, there wasn't like anyone, and this was back in I started in 2016. So like this was back when people weren't really like being authentic online. It's not that people were fake, they just like weren't really showing their life. There were the vloggers, but like the creators on Instagram were very much curated and they were very much like models. I felt like there wasn't anyone that really looked like me and who was like talking about their struggles at all.
Mm.
So thus How Hand Sees It was born. I wanted to encourage people to live unapologetically and authentically and like not be scared to do so. And I think building a community online is about making people feel safe. Like life is hard. It's like really,
Mm.
really hard. And social media can be like really mentally draining as well. You're just seeing so many people's lives and it all looks perfect. And like we know that's not the case, but still like you just fall into the trap. And I wanted to be a space where people felt like I want to, you know, dress like that and have those pieces or whatever, but I don't feel bad about that. Like she makes me
Yeah.
feel good. She makes me feel comfortable in my skin. And I wanted people to just not feel alone, I think. And that was like the extension of the podcast was a way to complement that as well. And I think like you can feel when someone, a creator, like cares or doesn't about their community. And I just like, I die for my mission. Like I just feel so strongly about it.
I love that you're sharing this so much because even the idea how Hand sees it, right? It is your point of view. And yet what you're sharing is the foundation of that is how you wanted to support people feeling, how you wanted to
Yeah.
welcome them in, how you wanted to create this, possible mirror of if I can, you can. And this is the way I choose to embody, embrace fashion, how I wear, how like don't I said you have a blog, you have all of these beautiful expressions. So I love everything you're saying in that you can feel it. You can feel the heart behind someone who's wearing an outfit and talking to you about it versus someone who's wearing an outfit from a place of superiority of look at
Yeah.
me, I can.
It's an energy for sure. And I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot to me. I think like when you're in this space, like you don't get to like, you're talking to the community so much, but you don't get to hear back a lot. Like they'll
Yeah.
DM, of course, and like people like and DM but you don't really like get to like hear it back. So there is an energy aspect of what you're talking about. And I think like to run a business in general, like you have to be intuitive with like your buyers, your consumers, your community. And I think there's just this like when you believe so strongly in what you do and lead with mission. I talk a lot about like leading with mission and anything, but especially in this space, like you have people's minds and hearts that are following you. Like you have to do everything with the intention of that mission. So like for me, like filming content, like filming outfit get ready with me is like I try to like embody and like in my mind be like the point is to like inspire someone to feel confident. Inspire someone to like put an outfit together because the reality is that like not every person is like watching what I wear and then going to the tags and buying exactly what I'm wearing. The point is to just like inspire people with my personal choice in the hopes that they'll make a personal choice and feel confident doing so.
Yes, yes, yes. And as we're talking about like this leadership and leading inside this space of entrepreneurship and online, what you're saying is so true in that we don't always know or hear the feedback,
Totally.
right? So I remember a mentor telling me years and years ago, like, especially in the coaching space, like you can deliver and be with your clients and love on your clients, and you might never, ever know the impact that you have and the courage that it takes to keep going without, right, that constant feedback of like, am I doing a good job? Right? Am I supporting you? Are you growing? Do you like it? Right? That little small piece of us that feels like it needs that. It takes a lot of courage to continue to grow, continue to lean in the way that we do and the way that you do without knowing the feedback, but continuing to trust the energy and the intention.
100%. I think like putting yourself out there in any capacity just takes so much courage and it's
Yeah.
hard. And I think the most successful people are the ones that like full send into the wind because people want people to care. And like I think like going back to like the initial mission of like how Hand Sees It was born, like my need for it was like why I started. And I think I've tried to like put myself in the consumer or the community or whatever word you want to use mind and like be like, okay, that's what they want. And I need to continue to like feed into that because that I would say at our core, like that is like the human condition. Like people want to connect with people. Like we do feel alone in our struggle. I think we get into that like victim mentality a lot. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think like we do. It's natural. It's human to think like I'm alone in my problems, even when you're surrounded by people. And if you have a platform, I do think there's a responsibility to continue to push for a deeper mission and meaning. And not everybody does that. But I do think like the most successful people know what they're about and they put it out there repetitively. They vocalize it. They make choices with that mission in mind. But they also like energetically just create and do everything with that at the forefront always. Because the moment you forget it, like your community, I always say, like, you can never earn the trust back of your community ever.
And it's true that the moment that you step away from that energetically, there's a shift.
Totally.
It changes things. Like I was just having a recent interview and someone asked me, like, do you feel like when you launch a program in the basis of love, you have different results than when you don't? Like, completely,
Yeah.
completely, right? Doesn't matter what the messaging or what the headline is, right? If there isn't that sense of love and connection and intention behind it, it's going to have a completely different, right?
Yeah.
Vibrational frequency. So did I see correctly that you just celebrated your 27th birthday?
I did. I
In
did on
February, right?
February 21st. Yeah.
February 21st. Okay. How you have this much wisdom at
That's so
this
nice.
age is so gorgeous. So, so
Thank
gorgeous.
you.
I'd love to hear because you have your podcast, How Hand Sees It, and you've shared a little bit about that. What do you want to share with us about your journey around your commitment on how you ended up here at 27 years old? Just barely
Oh
27.
my gosh. That is such a big question. I mean, Yeah, How Hand Sees It, the blog and Instagram, How I See It, the pod, is just like a reflection, I think, of my heart and like my journey. And I grew up in like a very chaotic home. Like love my like I still have a relationship with my family, but like a very chaotic home. I struggled with so much anxiety and depression, and I was just at like such a place of hopelessness. And I think like I just made, like I said before, like a conscious choice to like not live like this anymore. I think like we all have like the capacity to do great things and like
Yeah.
be happy and like do what makes us like on fire. And like
Yeah.
I just was at this point where I was like I refuse to believe that like this is what like I was made for. And I felt that like deeply, and I think like that's what drove me to just like push through the healing that needed to be done. Like I'm talking like, and I know you get it, and people who have like are on a healing journey, like this is a healing podcast, so I assume people who are listening are on the healing journey. But
Yeah.
like it's like crazy, it's like boot camp, it's intense, it's not pretty, there are tears, there's like it's horrible, and it's been a roller coaster, and it's beautiful, but it's horribly hard. And
Yeah.
I think that I've just, the way I've gotten here, and I appreciate you so deeply saying like that you think I'm wise. Like that's like the nicest compliment ever. I think it's more about I have like deep self-awareness,
Yeah.
and I refuse to not look in the mirror. I'm like incredibly scared of like regret and
Mm.
of like not living to my full potential. It's a
Yeah.
huge fear of mine, and I think that to do that, you have to be able, going back to hard, doing the hard things, like you have to be able to look in the mirror. And that is one of the hardest things to do. Like one of the like hardest things to do, be able to look in the mirror and be like, I have this horrible trait about me that's holding me back, or I have this horrible thing that I do that's breaking up all of my relationships. And I think I've gotten here because I've been willing to unapologetically look at myself and be like, I don't want to be this way, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just also put like the mission of my heart forward too, and being like, if I want to carry out this mission that I believe in so strongly, which is to build this empire that like inspires women into confidence, whether it's fashion, beauty, or their lifestyle, or inspire people to go for personal healing or build the business or whatever it is. Like if I want that, I have to be able to get myself to a place where I can accomplish that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. That standing in that place where we recognize, like, oh my God, this is my life. Like, wait a minute. Pause, pause. Oh my God, it's me. It's me. I'm living this. This is my life. Where am I getting in my own way? Where am I buying into that it's this person's fault or this person's fault, or like that real deep authenticity of self reflection? So I love that you bring that forward. And
Yeah, it's hard. It's so
it is
hard.
hard.
There are a
It
lot of
is.
beautiful words for like really hard things to do. And I mean, yeah, it's been no easy feat. But
Yeah.
I think that, like, again, like when you care about something deeply and you want something for yourself, I think a lot of people like don't connect the two. They're like, I want all these things. I want to get married. I want to have the business. I want to be successful. I want all of these things. But then they think that like it's outward, like that they have to find those things like outwardly, which of course you do like go out. But I think like those things can't come to you unless you're okay, like healing wise, mentally, emotionally. And like I think a lot of people miss that.
I agree. I agree. And if we've ever heard people say, which I think we've all said, like, I want my outside world to reflect my inside
Yeah.
world. And I'm like, it does.
Yeah. You're like,
Always. It already does. And that's where it's like, oh shit. Right?
yeah.
Let me look. Let me really, really look. We say inside an elegant femme, it's not always pretty, but it's always beautiful.
Oh, I love that.
And it is that depth. It is that courage. It is that awareness. And in what you're saying, like there are definitely these parts that are so painful and so hard. And I'd like to ask and see how you feel about this, because what I've witnessed in my own journey with my clients is that, yes, certainly there's the intensity of the pain, the struggle, the depth of that. And then there's also the place inside where we limit how good it can be. Where we almost train ourselves into the preparation for, okay, it's going to be hard, it's going to be bad, it's going to be painful. Not that it's not, certainly can be. But the other height of the experience of, oh my gosh, can I let it be this good? That as well, I find, potentially even more so, is where I feel we're being called into different levels of evolution. I'd love to hear what your kind of take is on that.
Totally. I think that like I think it is like beautiful. I think we do sell ourselves a narrative of like, if I think it's the reason why people like stay stagnant or stay trapped in different things, like whether it's a relationship or a job they don't like, or, people have sold themselves a narrative that like leaving this is going to be incredibly hard. Like this is too hard. It's not going to be beautiful. It's going to be really ugly. And like my life is going to fall apart as they're sitting from like a house with no like structure. I'm like trying to think of a metaphor. Like they're like saying all these things, like it's going to be awful, it's going to be ugly, it's going to be the worst ever, and they're sitting in like a very ugly, dark place. And I'm like, well, the move could look beautiful, and it's hard in the moment. I think we all
Yeah.
do it with everything. It's the journey that I think is ugly, and then in hindsight, it's beautiful. But like when you get there, I think it happens to us all. Like you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, thank God, because
Yeah.
I'm now here and this place is freaking amazing. But I think that's like the path of, resistance. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
choose the path of least resistance, which is staying. And in my opinion, it's like the path of least resistance is actually going to give you the destination of resistance. It's going to be awful. It's going to be horrible. But I think if you choose the journey that's hard, you end up in the place that's beautiful because you pushed yourself, to a point of healing and growth, and you acted on a new version of yourself rather than the old versions.
Yeah, so true. I mean, isn't it fascinating when we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared that it's going to be ugly and it's going to be hard and I'm not going to like it. And it's like, hold on a second. You're in a place where it's ugly and it's hard and you're not going to like it. Right. It's
I
that
Yeah.
just,
I've learned that like when I get into that space, it's usually me holding myself back. Like for instance, last year I was in a place with my business where I kind of hit this like plateau. It
Mhm.
wasn't like bad by any means, but I'm very like with the like mental health, emotional, sensitive side of me, I'm very cutthroat entrepreneur. And so
Yeah.
like I feel like if I'm not like growing like the same way, same time, I become very hard on myself. And so I kind of
Mhm.
hit this place where I was like, I am like kind of at a plateau and like that's unacceptable, which spoke to my first thing that I had to work on, which was being incredibly hard on myself. So that was
Yeah.
something I had to like really work through last year. Like my work is not my complete identity. And I think that's hard, especially when you do what I do and you as well. Like your heart is in your business so much that like it's very hard to separate. So I think like that was like kind of the anxiety I was getting from that was like to me, like ding, ding, like
Yeah.
this is something you need to work on. And then the next was like, okay, I want to grow this even further. Like, I want to impact even more people. Like, I'm going to need to pivot in some way, like add a new wing, add like something
Mhm.
different to how Han sees it. But like, that's scary, like, very
Yeah.
scary. And it was causing me a lot of anxiety and it made me super uncomfortable. And I was like, I don't even struggle with anxiety this much anymore. Why am I in so much turmoil right now? And that was like
Mhm.
my ding, ding, ding. I need to move forward with this because I feel incredibly uncomfortable. And that's like a good sign. And I think retraining your brain to like view those moments of uncomfortability in the moment
Mm.
is like very hard and it's like exercise. It takes practice. But I've
Yeah.
now learned like, okay, when I feel really anxious, that means that like it's probably the right choice. And I think when you intuitively learn yourself in that way, it helps.
Yeah, like starting to really feel energetically, not this doesn't mean it's bad. This
Yeah.
is an opening. This is a way that's calling me forward. If I can re identify, oh gosh, I'm scared, I need to back away and lean into the feeling, the energy, the emotion, it takes
Yeah.
courage. But you're exactly right. Like once you know yourself that way, you're self navigating in a completely different way.
And we're just so like I mean, we're all like this where we just want it our way. We like have this vision in our head for exactly how we're going to be successful and exactly
Yeah.
how it's going to go and exactly how the relationship's going to work out, like everything. And I think like it's so funny that I mean, we all know that we don't have control over our life. I mean, I grew up like very in a religious home, like very spiritual house and like I believed this at my core from a very young age, but I think like we're still human and I think the moment I relinquished the control like I finally just like stopped holding on so tight was that like I'm so happy this year with like the way things are moving and going
Mm,
and evolving and like I'm like I wish I could like
yeah.
go back, you know, and be like, "Hannah, it's okay."
Do you feel like though that that's a continual thing? Because the letting
Yes.
go of control, in my experience, it's like, okay, I let go and I feel into that surrender, and then the next big level comes, and it's like, and it's a
Yes.
reminder of like, okay, like really, life does have your best interest in mind.
For
Life
sure. I think
begets life, you know? It's like, can we just let go? Can we freaking let go? Doesn't mean we're not going to do the thing, but energetically trust.
for sure.
Yeah,
100%. I just think the healing journey never ends. I always
never.
say that. I think like it's unfortunate. I wish it did. I'm just being real. I'm just being real. Like I wish it did. I just wish could wake up one morning and like life was like dandy and daisies and like I was done. I reached Zen. I don't have to do anything else. But that's just like not the way it works. And it is beautiful
Yeah,
in like a way. Like it obviously is. Like I think it's a beautiful to look back. But in the moment it's hard. And I think the same things just pop up over and over and over again. And like in different ways and you just have to
yeah,
continue to be resilient and this is kind of going
yeah,
back to what we were talking about earlier like you can't just like talk the talk like you have to walk the walk
yeah,
continuously. I almost feel we just get the tests keep getting harder and different and like as you evolve like different experiences happen and you just we all are experiencing new things all the time that are testing like all the things we've worked on and all of our past traumas we've gone through and you have to make like a conscious choice to you know continue to push forward which is incredibly hard.
yeah. It is. And I think in those moments as well, we're also expanding our capacity to receive more of what life has in store for us. So the
Yeah.
challenges may get different, look different, might feel more intense, might feel less intense. Sometimes the things that used to rock us, now we're like, oh, we're good.
Yeah.
So life's like, okay, good. Here's the next thing that's going to rock you. But in that capacity to allow it, we get greater confidence and trust and ability to allow more in. Would you?
I would 100% agree. I think our resilience, like little bucket, gets bigger. Like you start
Yeah,
to like, I always say, like, you, especially in like business too, like it's the same thing. Like the more you go through like problems, like the easier it becomes to like face them as you continue. It's the same like in your healing
yeah,
journey. Like the more you like face and make the hard decisions, the more you like make the choices that make you uncomfortable, I think that the easier they become. It doesn't mean that there aren't new difficult ones that
yeah.
like pop up, but I think when you start like making those choices for yourself, it like builds confidence in a way. And
It
I think
does.
like it's like exercising. Like it
Yeah,
sucks when you're running like the 5K the first couple times and then like after a while you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can go up to the 10K now because I've done it." And like it's still hard, but like
yeah,
you're building like this resilience to this kind of stuff and I think just being again like being aware of it all like you just have to be super honest and self-aware with yourself all the time. I think not enough people have a dialogue with themselves. Is it scary?
yeah. So, what would you say, like, if we talk about entrepreneurship for a minute, is there something that you remember for yourself going through inside of business that you were like, no, there's no way I can go through this. I'm so scared. This is like pulling the bottom out from underneath me. And you move through it. Is there an example that
Yes.
comes to mind?
There's so many. No, so from the very beginning like I felt like very I don't like confident that this was like what I was supposed to do. I think a lot of people have asked me like on podcasts, like, were you scared when you started? Like, no, I actually really wasn't. I was like very confident that like this was exactly what I was supposed to do. I felt like very called, like
Mm,
for sure. And so I immediately just jumped in, threw my whole heart into it, you know, believed in it. I think I grew turned it into a full time job. Yippee ki yay! I was so excited. I think the hard part is like after that. So like when you're like in the midst of it, you're trying to scale, all these other like aspects come in. And like I said, last year was like a very hard year for me business wise, like mentally. Like I knew I needed to add something in if I wanted to continue to make my mission pour out deeper, if I wanted the money to go up, like all the things. Like if I wanted all of those things, like I needed to do something. And I was like incredibly like scared to give up the original vision that I had. Like I like had, it's really weird. Like I had like sold myself this idea that like if I added a new avenue to how Han sees it. So like right now I have the Instagram, the blog, the TikTok, like all things how Han sees it in that capacity. I have the podcast, how I see it, the pod, which has its own socials, and I now just added this last year consulting avenue. So like I'm taking on I think 3 or 4 clients a year and like just keeping it really small. But like it was something I felt very called to do, but almost rejected it like over and over and over again because my ego was getting in the way. Like I was like, I don't want to add something else. Like I shouldn't have to. Like this should be enough. Like this is my vision. This is what I wanted it to be. And there's no way that I can pivot away from that. And so I kind
Han,
of
this
went through
is
this
so
like,
good.
oh my
This
gosh,
is so
I'm
this
glad
is
you
so
think so.
freaking good what you're saying. Because it's
Like
like
it's
there's
just,
this
it was
one
so
liner.
hard.
It's one liner that you dropped, which is like, I was scared to give up my original vision.
Yeah.
Right? That place inside that holds on for dear life, the ego that's like, no, I don't want any more. This should be enough. Da, 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 da. Ah, this is so good and so real. So
It
you
is. I
trusted
mean,
that and you opened up consulting.
yeah, I did. Like I made it I genuinely cannot take on more than 4 people a year, but like I
Yeah.
did, and it was like so incredibly, I mean, scary is even like an understatement. Like I was like
Yeah.
rocked. I just like care so much, and I know you get it. Like it's your personal business, it's your heart, it's your
Yeah.
mission, and like I just didn't want to let go of the fact like, and it's so weird because it's not letting go. Like I didn't let go of anything. Like I it's now helicopter view. Like this was the right choice 110%. The way I've been able to like help people embody their mission into socials has been like so rewarding, and it's helped me so much. But like it's funny, like in the moment you're like, I shouldn't have to change anything that I wanted for the plan. Like it's so weird. Like I don't know who the heck I thought I was, but like it's hard. It's so emotionally rocking. It's really, really hard to pivot like away. And again, it's just choosing an uncomfortable situation. And I think I was very intimidated by the fact that I had to like start over something from scratch again. I had like done 2016, I launched an entire business. And then 2023, I launched a podcast. So I had to learn an entire new thing. And then at the end of 2023, I was like, now I have to learn something else. It's so scary to learn something else. And so I
Yeah.
think like it was just this conversation I had to have where I was like, why am I not doing this? Like, why am I getting so emotional like about something that is going to better me? And I realized it was just because I had this like ego problem of like, I should only have to be able to do this and be good. And that's just like not the case. And now I can look back and be like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Like I've impacted more people by taking this on. And that's the goal. That's the mission. So get it together, Hannah.
I love it. And so you have a consultancy now where you take 3 to 4 people a year and you help them with their social media, their message or mission from a business perspective and bringing it on social.
Yeah, I don't even like promote it that much because it's just been like word of mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like just added it as an avenue of how Han sees it. And like I've just come in and become like a self-contractor for a few businesses. And it's been so cool to like take the knowledge I know about, you know, not just socials, but like encouraging people with their mission. Like this is what your mission is. Like walk the walk, talk the talk. Like this is how you do it on socials. This is how you incorporate it. Cause like we're now in an age where like you have to try and like view your consumer or your client as like your community. That's just like the way like social media is now. And so I think like I can offer that. And, you know, not just from like a business standpoint because I do it, but like from a heart place. Like I believe in this strongly.
I love what you're saying too, is it's like, okay, how Han sees it, but you're helping people with their message and mission. It's not like this is how I see it, so this is how you need to see it. It's
Yeah.
let me
Yeah. I
help
think
you curate and cultivate how you see it so you can express it in that way.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
it's so funny. It was subconscious. Like people always ask me, like, why did you name it How Hand Sees It? And I think it was because for me, like when growing up, I didn't really feel like I had like a voice. Like I didn't feel
Mm,
like my feelings or opinion or anything was validated. So like for me, I was like unapologetic fashion and lifestyle. Like I'm gonna be my authentic true self. I'm gonna inspire others to do the same. And
yeah,
it's just how I see it. Like you don't have to agree, you don't
yeah,
have to like everyone's opinion is like welcome and here and like do you and be confident and like but it's this is just how I see it. So like
yeah.
welcome. And then I realized that like subconsciously like I was like almost encouraging people with the name to like do as they see it as well. Like it
Yes.
was so interesting.
That's what's so beautiful about it. And I also love, I
Thank
want to touch
you.
on this before we're done. And this is, you've mentioned a couple times how you grew up and kind of what you moved through. And even just again, recognizing and feeling like I felt like I didn't have a voice or an opinion. So this was my opportunity to heal myself through that space that bought into that idea or that illusion that there wasn't space for me to claim the truth of who I am.
Yeah.
One other thing you mentioned was about body image. You mentioned it really, really briefly that you had ideas and thoughts about that growing up. And now, you're online in these beautiful outfits, honoring your body. Can you talk a little bit about that transition for you of going from that space of feeling unconfident and questioning that aspect of you into this beautiful imagery of what I see when I look at you online of this body love and acceptance and celebration?
Oh, that makes me so happy. Thank you. I think like I would be lying if I said that it's like completely gone. I
Yeah.
think that I just have struggled so much with like the way I see myself. I think like it's a product of like my experiences, also just the culture we live in. And I think that my entire life I've just struggled with like the feelings of like I want to be skinny. I want to be skinnier. I feel too big. Look fat. Like all the negative self-talk we do as women. I think this is like very a lot of women do this. And I think that I just hit a point where I was like I am tired of being tortured by this all the time. Like
Mm,
all the time. Like and I think I'm serious. I would be lying if I said I don't struggle with it still.
yeah.
Like I think it's something I go back and forth, but I think like it was a point where I was like if I want to show up like online and encourage people to feel confident in their own skin, wear what they want, whatever, like I have to show up that way even when I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I think like forcing yourself into a place sometimes is required, whether it's like your body image or like your mental health or like any issue you're struggling with. Sometimes you just have to force yourself there and like fake it till you make it and like
Yeah.
continue to push through and get comfortable. I think that's how you get comfortable doing the uncomfortable things. And for me, like, it's so funny because I tell people, I talk a lot about like this insecurity on the podcast and on my story when I can. Like, I'll share and I think people are always surprised because I do post online like a lot. Like I post myself in outfits, like I post selfies, I post the makeup stuff. And like you just assume that people who do that are just really confident in the way they look. And I think it's just never been like something I'm confident in. And like I
Yeah.
think being open about it is like kind of the first step in doing the work and also encouraging others to like acknowledge that it's normal to like feel insecure sometimes, but you can't let it define you. And I think like it got to a point where like I just couldn't stop thinking about it like all the time. And like I would walk past a window, always had to look what I look like in the mirror or like how my body looked. Like, do I look skinny? Do I look fat? Do I not look good? And it just became this narrative that I was like, oh my gosh, if I were to put all of these thoughts in a jar at the end of the day, I would need like 10 million jars because this is all I'm thinking about and I can't even like focus. So I think it,
Yeah.
it was a conscious choice I made to acknowledge like this is like a new wave of my healing journey. Like I want to continue to push through these narratives and get to the root cause, but there also needs to be like some type of choice that's made where I like actively like when that thought comes in, I have to be like, nope, gotta like send it away, send it away. And I think as women, I think we all struggle with this and have to do this if we want to, feel good. about ourselves, because it doesn't matter. Like the outside validation doesn't matter. This is like an internal conversation for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is such an important conversation, Han, truly. I remember it was back in like probably 2013 that I was doing a live event in San Diego, actually, at the
Oh yeah.
Hotel Del Mar. And we had hundreds of women in the audience. And I asked, how many of you have struggled in any way with an eating disorder? And when I defined eating disorder, I meant like that feeling of lack of control, of obsession around our bodies. 98% of the room raised their hand.
Wow.
And the other 2% might have been too shy to raise their hand. You
Yeah.
know, I think that this is such a conversation for us as women. And I share openly in my podcast and journey as well that I struggled with an eating disorder from the time I was really like 12 and full blown when I was 17. And I agree with you that it doesn't ever really go away. And yet there is a conscious choice when we recognize how much energy we're putting towards something. And inside, it's like, if I was even to consider putting that energy towards something else, what would I be capable of? And
Yeah.
I think
Wow.
that's a beautiful unraveling around these kind of obsessions that we have, whether it's body, any kind of perfection where we're like, if I was just fill in the blank, right? Rich enough, skinny enough, smart enough, like whatever the enoughness is inside. If we consider what we're hiding from, like if we can frame it even that way, like what we're hiding from, if we were to utilize the energy somewhere else, I think it's fascinating.
That's so good. That's so good. I feel like, again, like we are like hiding from ourselves always. I
Yeah.
think that's like that is like the epitome of the healing journey, I think. And I think
Yes.
it's beautiful how you worded it, because it's true. And it's actually like really sad that like 90, I would say it's probably like 99 for sure. Like you're right, to the point of like I'm sure there were people that didn't even raise their hand. Like we as women have all struggled with this issue in some capacity. It is just like ingrained in our culture now. And I think there's just like a hard balance, right? Like to our point, like you do have to make a conscious choice. It's like an
Yeah.
exercise. You have to choose every day to like move those thoughts, reframe, reaffirm in the opposite way. But I think there's also like this weird standard too that in our culture that like it's not okay to like want to change some things. And I
Mm,
think there's just a fine balance. Like I've been really open about how this year I've been like getting some like Botox and I got some like
mhm.
chin filler, and like I
Yeah.
feel so good about it. Like the decision,
Yeah.
like I love it. I like absolutely
Oh.
love it. I like yeah, I can't speak good enough things about my girl Mina. And like you know what I mean? Like, and I think it's just this calm. And again, like, I think there's an authenticity, especially when you have a community, like, about talking about this stuff, which I've been like so open about because I've been so happy. But I think a lot of people would be like, oh, well, you don't think you're good enough in your own
Exactly.
skin, blah, 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 blah.
Oh my goodness, it is such a fine line because I hear you. Like, I'll have women say to me, "Well, you talk about beauty. Shouldn't you? You should, not even shouldn't you? You should not get Botox. You should not get lip filler. You should." And I'm like, listen, here's the thing, the intention and the conversation and the mission is to show up as all of who we are in alignment with what feels good, period.
Yeah,
Period. There's a difference between obsession, I'm not good enough, so I have to, versus this feels supportive as a reflection of who I know myself to be. It's a yes. And I
totally.
think
That's so
that's
good.
like
So good.
so
I think
good.
it's about self value. Like, if you're
Mm,
going to get the Botox or filler, like, is that going to make you feel more confident? Feel like you're accentuating your beauty? Like, are you going to feel good? Or is like your self value going to be dependent on it? Like,
right.
and I think there's a difference. And I
Yes.
think for me, I was like very upfront with my Botox filler girl. And I looked at her and I trust her. She's amazing. She actually came on the podcast. But like, we were talking and I was like, look, I have a past with, you know, not feeling good enough because of my looks. And this is something that I really want to do, but I need to know that like you are going to say no, and that you're going to like keep me accountable, and that you're going to like, if you catch me like becoming obsessive or having like face dysmorphia, that you're going to have to call me out, because I know myself and I have a past with this and I want to make sure you keep me in line. And she was like, totally in alignment. She's like has this like same mission of like, you know, being like just accentuating beauty and pushing confidence. And so I knew I could trust her, but it is a fine line. You have to be able to be good enough without all the things, and
Yeah.
also be willing to give yourself the things
Yes.
you want as well. It's a difficult
Yes.
balance.
It's such a, but see, this is what I love. And I'm falling more and more in love with you as we continue
Me
to
too.
talk.
This has been such a good conversation. I love it.
Because this is what we wrapped about in the beginning. It's like the willingness to have the conversation inside.
Yeah.
Like continuously. It's like not having a conversation once and shoving it under the carpet. And it's like watching that nuance of like, okay, am I starting to get obsessive? Am I relying on this too much? Like, let me check in again and again and again and again and again. And that never ends. Right? When
Yep.
we're committed to this journey, it never ends. It's like I'm going through the same things right now. I just turned 48. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I want like a little mini lift. And I'm having this conversation like continuously. I want to do something with my neck. Okay, hold on. Where is this coming from?
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet because I know I'm not in full alignment. Like I know I need to really be in a centered space as I move into that level. It's a continued conversation.
The self-awareness is so important. And also
Yeah.
you don't need that. Yeah, you look gorgeous. I'd be honest with you. You look gorgeous. You do not need it.
Thank you.
But I get it. Like it's so
Yeah.
important like to do the self-audit. Like no one's doing
Completely.
the self-audit. And also I think like this is why it's important to have like women you trust around you. Like for a
Yeah.
long time I sold myself this idea that I like didn't really like want women friends. Like I think a lot of women are hurt by other women. And like women have just been hurt so badly that we've turned on each other. And I think that I've like gotten to a place where I'll never be the person that has like a ton of friends, like close friends. But like I do have a core group of women now around me that I know like I could go to and be like, I
Yeah.
need your honest opinion. Like I want
Yeah.
to do this. I want to get this done. I want to make this decision. Like, do you think this is in alignment with who I am? And like what and or do you think this is coming from a place of insecurity? Like being able to have women around you that keep it real like that and who are vulnerable and like willing to hold you accountable and have the hard conversation with you is like so important as a woman like in today's day and age.
You know, what you're saying is so tender. And I'm so glad that this came up on the podcast because with everything we've been talking about, when we can understand that deep down we have these similarities and these connection as women, and instead of judging each other as inferior or superior, that little reach out to be like, wow, I see you, like you're beautiful, you've got this, I love you, you're amazing, I don't care if I know you or not. Like we share these same internal opportunities for growth. Like go,
Yeah.
go. Like, let me
Life is
just
too hard.
acknowledge you, you know?
Life is too hard not to have like women around. I am convinced that like from the beginning of time, men just like started rumors like between women so that they would like be pinned against each other and then like therefore not be powerful because women together are so powerful. And I think, of course, like not everyone is for everyone. And like
Yeah.
not every single one of your friends is going to be this like safe haven and like vulnerable
Yeah.
place. But like if you can find a couple, I just find so much value in it because and especially for me, like I really try to have like women in my life too who like are smarter than me and like have more experience than me too so that I can just continue to grow because I think that's like sometimes an issue as well. Like we can like stay in the same stagnant like kind
Yeah.
of support system and that doesn't make the support any less valuable, but I think like there's a beauty in like finding people that are almost like mentors as well, like women
Mm,
mentors that can like keep you accountable and like teach you as well.
I love that. And in different areas, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe in business, maybe in health, maybe in lifestyle and fashion, you know, just
Yeah.
trusting that core level of intention and commitment to growth and evolution.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, I feel like we're going to do a part two together.
We
It
should
just,
for
it,
sure.
it just, there's so many juicy things that came forward. So I would love for you to share like all the ways that you want to for my community, for everyone inside of Elegant Femme to fall in love with you. Obviously, go follow you on Instagram.
So
You have
nice.
so much value to offer, just your energy, your heart, the way with which you show up in the world, your commitment and devotion to self evaluation. Han, it's really, really, really gorgeous. And I'm so honored, really, truly honored that you're on the podcast, but also to get to know you Like, be in this space together, woman to woman, and like call it, you know?
Thank you so much. That is so
Yeah.
incredibly kind. It like made my week. I've had like the craziest week ever. And to end the week in this conversation like means the world to me. I appreciate like your dedication to the same mission and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it. So yes, please, whenever you want me back, I will come.
Yes!
But yeah, you can find me at How Han Sees It, all platforms. The blog is howhanseesit.com and the podcast is How I See It Pod, and it's on Apple and Spotify. And Tara's actually going to be on mine soon as well, so you can catch her half on mine.
Yes, we're gonna have fun. So we'll put all of that in the show notes. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you would like to end with? If you're just like, you know what, I just want to drop a truth right now. Is there anything you would say in closing?
Oh, I would just, if you're listening, just choose yourself, and choosing yourself means doing the hard thing. And I think if you are pursuing healing or thinking about it, like it is so hard, but it is the most rewarding thing I've done with my life. And I would just encourage people to do that. Like, just choose yourself, choose the journey, make the hard choices. It's worth it for sure.
So good. So, so good. Han, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
No, thank you.
I've fallen in love with you and I can't wait for what's next.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you
I've
so
had
much.
such a good
Mwah.
time.
Thank you so much. Merci, merci for listening to the Beautiful Soul-Led Life podcast. I would love if this message served you, that you support it and share it with other women who might benefit from really having their lives in balance with their femtypes. And if you can leave a comment, do a review. I love reading every single one of them. And I would adore if you could take a snapshot of yourself wherever you listen to this episode and post it on social media. My Instagram is elegantfemme1, and I'd love to see you, share you, and just celebrate with you as you are moving into creating, experiencing, and claiming your own beautiful soul-led life.